Today, dozens of family members and friends gathered at this park in Carneys Point in South Jersey to remember this woman, Tamika, a mother of 4 who they say will be terribly missed. The 41-year-old Tomeka Kamwani tell NBC 10 they are still in disbelief, struggling to understand how the mother of 4 was, according to them, shot and killed by her ex-fiancé, who then took his own life last Friday night.
It's a shame he had to do that. That's about all I can think about. Why would he want to do that? People break up. I would never think what happened to a family. Never thought about it. We thought he was a good person. And when this happened, I couldn't believe it. And I still don't want to believe it.
She had a restraining order. She went to court. She did the paperwork. She followed every single step the system tells victims to follow. And she still ended up dead inside her own home while her children were just feet away. That right there is what makes this case so hard to sit with. Because Tomeka Kamwani didn't do anything wrong. She saw the danger coming, and she tried to stop it. The system just didn't stop it with her. Tamika P. Kamwani was 41 years old, a nurse, a mother of 4. She lived on the 300 block of Broad Street in Swedesboro, New Jersey, a small, tight-knit community where everybody pretty much knows everybody. By all accounts, Tamika was one of those people who showed up for others constantly. Her patients at Autumn Lake Memorial Bridge Nursing Home loved her so much that even after they left the facility, they were still calling her. Think about that. People who no longer needed her professionally still wanted her in their lives. That tells you everything about the kind of woman she was. Her 4 children, Gavin, Aiden, Bryson, and Ava, were her entire world. Her sister Lakiecha described her as a mother who poured everything she had into those kids every single day. They were her reason, her purpose, and by all accounts she protected them fiercely. So when she started feeling threatened by the man she had once planned to spend her life with, she didn't freeze. She moved. She went and got a restraining order against her ex-fiancé. Now think about how hard that is for a second, going to court against someone you once loved, someone who had been sitting at your family's table, someone your whole family trusted. That takes courage, real courage. And she did it anyway because she knew something was wrong. Now here's where the story gets complicated and honestly infuriating. The man in question wasn't some stranger. He wasn't someone the family had red flags about from day one. Tamika's Aunt Barbara Brooks Faults said straight up that the family thought he was a good person. He came around to family functions. He was woven into their lives. And that's exactly the kind of situation that makes domestic violence so difficult to see from the outside, because abusers don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like somebody's fiancé at a cookout. But Tamika knew, and she acted on what she knew. So what happened on the night of March 27th? At approximately 3:52 in the morning, Woolwich Township Police responded to the 300 block of Broad Street. What they found inside that home was devastating. According to family members, Tamika had been shot and killed, and the man believed to be responsible, her ex-fiancé, was also dead from what relatives describe as a self-inflicted gunshot wound, a murder-suicide, right there in the home where her children lived. And 2 of those children, her oldest, were inside the house when it happened. Let that land for a second. 2 kids in the same house. While their mother was being shot and key //ed by a man, she had legally tried to keep away from her. Now ask yourself, how does someone with a restraining order against them end up inside that woman's home at nearly 4 in the morning? That's the question nobody has answered yet. And that question matters more than almost anything else in this case, because a restraining order isn't just a piece of paper. It's supposed to be a barrier. It's supposed to signal to law enforcement, to the courts, to the whole system, that this person is a threat and needs to be kept away. But restraining orders don't come with enforcement unless someone calls for help. And in the middle of the night, sometimes that call doesn't come in time. Sometimes it doesn't come at all. The Gloucester County Prosecutor's Office took over the investigation and confirmed there was no ongoing threat to the public, which, when you read between the lines, is confirmation that the suspected shooter was already dead. But beyond that, official details have been almost completely locked down. The Gloucester County Prosecutor's Office has stayed unusually quiet on this one, No press conference. No named suspect. No official timeline released to the public. Just a brief statement confirming an investigation was underway and that there was no threat to the community. For a case that has shaken an entire region and sparked vigils and national conversations about domestic violence, that silence has not gone unnoticed. The family is grieving publicly while authorities are barely saying a word. And that disconnect is something that deserves to be talked about. What the family has been willing to say, though, has painted a picture that is both heartbreaking and eye-opening. Tamika's sister, Lakeisha Brooks, spoke at the vigil held on April 3rd at Kearney's Point Recreational Park, just days after losing her sister. And she stood up in front of that crowd and said the outpouring of support had been overwhelming. Strangers reaching out on Facebook, community members showing up, people who never even met Tamika rallying around her babies. Lakeisha said it was a good kind of overwhelming. But underneath all of that support is a grief that no amount of GoFundMe donations or balloon releases can fix. And speaking of those children, because we have to talk about them, Gavin, Aiden, Bryson, and Ava lost their mother in the most violent and traumatic way imaginable. 2 of them were home when it happened. Lakeisha confirmed that neither of those 2 kids wants to go back inside that house. And honestly, can you blame them? That home, which was supposed to be their safe place, became the scene of the worst night of their lives. These are children who now have to carry that with them forever.
She broke up with him. He didn't take it. He followed her to a friend's house. She immediately filed for a restraining order. She got the restraining order, and then she still wasn't protected. He walked up and down her street so regularly. Neighbors reported him being on their porch watching her house. It's no way that he should have been walking the streets free. None at all. It's overwhelming. I've had inboxes on Facebook from complete strangers showing their support. Everybody in the community showing their support for me, her babies. It's just been overwhelming, but a good overwhelming.
So here's a question worth sitting with. What happens to kids who witness or are present during something like this? What kind of support system is actually in place for them going forward? The GoFundMe launched by Lakeisha had already raised over $28,000 as of April 4th, in less than 2 weeks. The goal was to cover burial costs and provide for the children's long-term housing, education, and daily needs. That number speaks to how much this story moved people. But money, as necessary as it is, doesn't replace a mother. It doesn't explain to 4 kids why the system that was supposed to protect their mom didn't do its job, because that's the part of this that keeps coming back. Tomeka Kamwani recognized the threat. She named it. She went through the legal process to document it and protect herself from it. And somewhere between that restraining order being granted and 3:52 in the morning on March 27th, everything fell apart. How? That's what people want to know. Was there a violation of the order before that night? Was there contact that went unreported? Did anyone know things had escalated? Those are questions that may never be fully answered now that the suspected perpetrator is dead. What we do know is that this is not an isolated story. Across the country, domestic violence victims are told to call the police, get a restraining order, document everything, leave. And statistically, the most dangerous period for a victim is right after they leave or seek legal protection. The act of leaving or trying to enforce a legal boundary can push an abusive partner into the most extreme version of themselves. That's not a theory. That's what the data shows over and over again. And Tamika's case, as painful as it is one more data point in that brutal reality. At the vigil, one woman stood before the crowd and said something that stopped people in their tracks. She said if someone wants to track your every move, that's not love. If they want to control who your friends are, that's not love. That is control. And she's right.
If they want to track your every step, that's not love. If they want to know who are all your friends and who you're social and everything, that's not love. That's called control.
But here's the harder question. What do we actually do as a society to make sure women like Tamika don't have to die before we take those warning signs seriously? Her Aunt Barbara put it simply. She said people break up. That's life. Why would someone choose to end it all like this rather than just walk away? That question sat heavy in the air at that vigil, and nobody had a clean answer to it. Because the truth is, the kind of rage that drives a person to do what this man allegedly did to Tamika doesn't come from love. It comes from ownership. It comes from a mindset that says, if I can't have you, nobody will. And that mindset doesn't announce itself on the first date. It creeps in slowly, disguised as protectiveness, as passion, as devotion, until one day the person on the receiving end realizes they're not in a relationship anymore. They're in a trap. Tamika apparently realized that, and she tried to get out. The restraining order proves she understood the danger she was in. Her sister's words at that vigil, wishing Tamika had felt comfortable enough to say something sooner, point to the isolation that so many victims experience. Not because their family wouldn't help, but because abuse has a way of making people feel like they have to handle things quietly. Like speaking up will only make it worse. Like maybe things will settle down on their own. And sometimes, by the time a person finally does speak up, the situation has already reached a point of no return. What makes Tamika's story cut even deeper is the image of who she was outside of this tragedy. This was a woman who showed up for sick people every single day as a nurse. She comforted strangers in their most vulnerable moments. She gave her patients a level of care so personal that they kept reaching out to her long after she stopped being responsible for them. And then she came home to a situation where nobody could give her that same protection back. There's something about that contrast that is almost unbearable to sit with. Her children are going to grow up knowing their mother fought for them until the very end. Gavin, Aiden, Bryson, and Ava are going to one day understand that their mom saw danger coming and did not just accept it. She went to court. She got the paperwork. She stood up for herself in a system that ultimately wasn't fast enough or strong enough to back her up. And hopefully, her story becomes a reason somebody else's mother makes out alive. That's the only thing that gives any of this a sliver of meaning. Because right now, the conversation Tamika's family is pushing for is one that this country has been avoiding for too long. How do we actually protect people who are being threatened by someone they once loved? A restraining order is a legal document. It is not a force field. It does not stop a determined person from showing up. It does not lock a door. It does not call 911 on your behalf at 4 a.m. So what fills that gap? What is the actual plan for the woman who has done everything right and is still in danger every single night? Those are the questions Lakeisha Brooks and this family are demanding answers to. And they deserve those answers not just for Tamika, but for every woman sitting somewhere right now with a restraining order on a piece of paper and fear they haven't told anybody about. The Gloucester County Prosecutor's Office investigation remains ongoing. The suspect's name has still not been officially released by authorities. And 4 children are somewhere right now learning how to exist in a world without their mother in it. A mother who loved them more than anything, who went to work and cared for strangers, who recognized a threat and tried to stop it, and who deserved to be protected by the same system she put her faith in. Tomeka Kamwani was 41 years old. She was a nurse, a daughter, a sister, and above everything else, a mother. And she deserved better than what happened to her on March 27th. If this case does anything, let it be a reminder that when someone tells you they're afraid, you believe them, you help them, and you don't stop until they're safe. If you or someone you know is in a dangerous situation, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24 hours a day at 1-800-799-7233. Don't wait. Make the call.